In the deep silence of space, far away from known human roots, a broken alien transport ship drifted like dead metal. Its lights were gone, its engines were frozen, only emergency red warnings blinked in slow rhythm. As if the ship was still trying to breathe, inside this dying ship. Something was still alive. A small containment pod sat in the center of a shattered lab room. Thick glass covered it, reinforced with alien metal locks and energy seals. Inside the pod was a child, not a normal child, an alien child. Her small body floated slightly inside the stasis field. Thin wires connected to her skin, reading constant energy levels. Her eyes were closed, but her face showed pain even in sleep every few seconds. Faint energy sparks moved around her like lightning trapped in water. On the pod screen, one message kept repeating in red letters: Subject Class. Extreme Threat. Status: Too dangerous to live. No rescue signal had been sent for her. No medical request. No evacuation order. Only one instruction existed in the ship system: contain. Or terminate outside the ship. The wreck zone was quiet. Broken pieces of old ships floated like gravestones. This area of space was known by pilots as a dead region. No patrols came here. No traders came here. Even pirates avoided it, because ships that entered sometimes never returned. Far away, a small human salvage ship moved slowly through the debris field. It was not a military ship. It was not a warship. It was an old human recovery vessel named Horizon Drift. Inside the control room, Captain Ethan Cole watched the scanner in silence. His ship was built for broken ships, lost cargo, and abandoned wrecks, not for war, not for rescue missions in forbidden zones. But today was different. A strange signal had been detected, not a distress beacon, not a standard emergency call. It was something unstable, something repeating in broken pulses. The crew looked worried. "Captain," one engineer said carefully, "this signal is not human origin." Another added, "We should avoid it. This zone is marked dangerous. No one survives here long." The bridge became silent for a moment. Ethan stared at the screen. The signal was weak, but it was still active. That meant something was still alive or dying slowly. He leaned forward slightly. "Mark the location," he said calmly. The crew looked at him in shock. "Sir, we are not supposed to go there." Ethan did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He only replied, "We are already here." The ship changed direction as Horizon Drift moved closer. The debris field became thicker. Broken hulls floated past the windows. Some were burned. Some were cut open from the inside. It looked like something had torn through them without mercy. One engineer whispered, "This is not a normal wreck zone." But Ethan stayed focused on the signal. The closer they got, the stronger it became. Then the scanners picked up something else. A large structure half intact, drifting inside a shadow field. Alien design. The crew went silent again. The ship was old military grade, but clearly not human. And it was still powered. Barely. Ethan stood up slowly. "Prepare boarding team," he ordered. A crew member protested. "Captain, that ship is unknown alien military class. It could be a trap." Ethan looked at the screen one more time. The signal was coming from inside that ship, and now it was getting weaker. "Then we don't have much time," he said. The boarding lights turned on. The airlock opened. Cold space silence filled the ship for a moment, before the small human team moved out. As their ship drifted closer, the alien wreck looked more broken than ever. Metal was torn like paper. Energy lines flickered like dying veins. Something terrible had happened here, and somewhere inside that dead ship, a child was still waiting. The human ship moved through the silent wreck field like a small light in endless darkness. Its name was Horizon Drift. But inside the ship, there was no comfort of drifting, only alert systems, scanning alarms, and heavy silence. Every window showed the same view: broken alien ships floating like dead giants. Some were half melted. Some were cut in half as if something had sliced through them with impossible force. No stars felt bright here. Even space looked heavier, like it was holding a secret it did not want to share inside the control room. Captain Ethan Cole stood still, watching the main scanner. The strange signal was now stronger. It was coming from the largest wreck in the field, an alien military-class ship. The structure was massive, but it was dying slowly. Energy flickered along its broken surface, like weak lightning in a storm. Parts of it were missing, as if something had ripped them out instead of breaking them. The crew stayed quiet. No one wanted to speak too loudly in a place like this. Then the navigation officer spoke carefully. "Captain, we are inside restricted alien territory now." Another crew member added, "If they detect us, we could be seen as invaders." Ethan did not answer immediately. He studied the readings. Something was wrong with the signal. It was not just a distress call. It was repeating in a pattern, like something inside was still alive and still trying to speak. "Focus on the source," Ethan finally said. The ship turned slightly. Thrusters moved carefully, avoiding large debris fields. The wreckage around them seemed to grow thicker the closer they got. And then they saw it clearly. The alien ship was not just broken. It was destroyed from the inside. Large sections of its hull were torn outward, like something had exploded. But not from fuel or weapons, from energy. The engineering officer whispered, "This level of damage. This is not normal combat." No one replied, because everyone could feel it now. This was not a battlefield. This was something worse. As horizon drift approached, the scanners locked onto a weak life signal. One source, inside the alien wreck. The signal was unstable, sometimes strong, sometimes almost gone, like a heartbeat struggling to continue. Ethan stepped closer to the screen. "Zoom in," he ordered. The display sharpened. A single internal chamber appeared inside the alien ship. Half destroyed, filled with broken lab equipment, floating debris, and frozen emergency lights, and in the center, a containment pod. The crew went silent. The pod was not standard prison tech. It was advanced, military-grade, designed for extreme containment, and it was still active. One engineer spoke in a low voice. "That is not a prison pod. That is a high-threat stasis unit," another added. "That means whatever is inside is not meant to be alive." Ethan did not blink. He kept watching, because the life signal was coming from inside that pod. The scanner suddenly flashed red. "Warning. Entity classified extreme risk. Auto protocol. Termination recommended." The crew became tense. The ship SI voice activated. "Warning. Target inside containment pod, classified as high-level existential threat. Boarding is not advised." Silence filled the room again. One of the crew members stepped back slightly. "Captain, maybe we should report this and leave. Let the military handle it." Another added quickly, "We are just salvagers. This is not our mission." But Ethan did not move. He stared at the pod image. Something inside it felt wrong, not dangerous, wrong in a different way. The signal was not aggressive. It was not attacking. It was not spreading. It was fading slowly, like something that had been alone for too long. Ethan lowered his voice. "Prepare boarding access." The crew froze. "Sir? We don't know what is inside that ship," another said. "We could die in seconds." Ethan finally turned to them. His face was calm, but firm. "If something is still alive in there, and calling for help, we are not leaving it." No one spoke after that. The boarding team was assembled. 3 humans in reinforced suits, light weapons, only emergency tools, nothing heavy, because this was not supposed to be a fight, at least that is what they believed. The airlock opened slowly. Cold space entered like a silent breath. The human team stepped out into the wreck field. Floating debris passed them slowly. Broken metal shards reflected weak starlight. The alien ship loomed ahead like a dead giant, waiting in silence. Every step closer felt heavier. Not because of gravity, but because of something unseen, something that felt like it had happened here, and was still happening. As they reached the hull, the access hatch was already half open, like the ship itself had given up resisting. Inside, darkness waited, and somewhere deep within that darkness, the signal was still pulsing slowly, like a child's heartbeat, refusing to stop. The moment the human boarding team entered the alien ship, the silence changed. It was no longer empty silence. It felt heavy, like the air itself remembered something terrible. The corridor lights flickered in weak red pulses. Broken wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. Every step of the human boots echoed too loudly. As if the ship was listening, Captain Ethan Cole raised his hand slightly. The team stopped. Slow movement, he said quietly. No one spoke after that. The ship interior was worse than the outside damage suggested. Walls were not just broken, they were torn open from the inside, like something had pushed through them with force that did not belong to normal weapons. Burn marks covered the metal, but they were strange, not heat burns, more like energy scars. One crew member whispered through the comms, "This place. It feels like something exploded from life itself." Ethan did not reply. He kept walking toward the signal. The life reading was stronger here, but unstable. Sometimes it spiked. Sometimes it dropped so low it almost disappeared, like something was fighting to stay alive. They passed what looked like a research hallway. Floating data screens still blinked with corrupted text. Alien symbols moved slowly across broken displays. One screen flickered long enough for Ethan to see a warning message: subject containment failure risk, unlimited. Another line appeared underneath: project, child class weapon entity. The crew stopped again. Child? One of them whispered. No one answered because it did not make sense. Why would a weapon be called a child? They moved deeper into the ship. The corridors became narrower. The lights became weaker. The silence became thicker. Then they reached a large, sealed lab door. It was reinforced, multiple locking systems. Emergency override codes flashing in red. The AI voice of the alien ship suddenly activated. Warning. Unauthorized presence detected. The voice was broken. Like it had been repeating warnings for a long time without anyone listening. Ethan stepped forward. "Open it," he ordered. One engineer hesitated. "Captain, this is the core containment zone." The AI voice repeated louder. "Do not open. Subject is classified extreme threat." The warning kept looping, but Ethan did not step back. "Override it," he said again. The engineer began hacking the panel. The system resisted. Not like a normal lock, but like something inside the ship did not want the door opened. Finally, after a long pause, the door unlocked with a deep mechanical sound. It opened slowly. Cold air escaped from inside, and everything went quiet. The team stepped in carefully. The room was large. It looked like a research chamber mixed with a containment facility. Broken science equipment floated in zero gravity. Cracked glass tubes drifted like frozen rain. Energy cables sparked weakly near the walls, and in the center of the room was a containment pod. But this one was different. It was thicker, heavily reinforced, covered in layered alien security seals, and still active inside it. Something moved slightly. The life signal spiked, then dropped again. Ethan slowly approached. The pod glass was semi-transparent. At first they only saw darkness inside. Then slowly, a shape became visible. Small body, curled up, connected to medical and energy monitoring lines. An alien child. Her skin was pale with faint glowing veins under it. Her breathing was shallow. Her face showed exhaustion even in unconscious state. But what shocked the team was not just her condition. It was the labels on the pod screen. They blinked repeatedly in red warning text. Subject designation, weapon entity, stability, uncontrolled, threat level, maximum, status, do not release. One crew member stepped back immediately. This is what the signal is coming from? Another shook his head. If she wakes up, this whole ship could go critical. The ship AI suddenly spoke again. Recommendation, terminate subject immediately. Silence hit the room again. The warning felt final, like a judgment. Ethan stared at the child. She looked no different from a child, small, weak, trapped. Not a weapon, not a threat, just something that had been locked away and forgotten. Then the AI spoke again. Note: previous incidents confirm subject caused destruction of 3 military fleets. The crew went even more silent. Now fear started to grow. One engineer whispered, "Captain, this is not a rescue mission anymore." But Ethan did not move away. He looked at the pod again. The child inside shifted slightly. Her fingers moved weakly against the glass, like she could feel them there, like she knew someone had finally come, and for the first time. The signal became steady, not strong, not dangerous, just stable, like a heartbeat that refused to stop anymore. Ethan stepped closer to the pod control panel. The AI voice immediately increased warning levels. Final warning. Opening pod will result in catastrophic event. The team waited. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Ethan placed his hand on the release console, and for a moment, he hesitated, not because of fear, but because of what he saw in the child's face. Not a weapon, not destruction. Just silence. And waiting, and then he made his decision. The control room of the alien containment chamber felt colder than before, not because of temperature, but because of the decision that was about to be made. Every human in the room stood still. Even the ship's system seemed quieter. As if the entire wreck was waiting, the alien pod in the center gave a soft, weak pulse of light. It was not strong, it was not stable, but it was alive. And it was watching them in its own way. Captain Ethan Cole stood in front of the control panel. His hand was already close to the release switch behind him. Tension grew. One crew member finally spoke through a shaky voice. "Captain, please step away from the console." Another added quickly, "This is not a normal rescue." The ship I already confirmed multiple extinction events linked to this subject. The words echoed in the room. Extinction events. That phrase was heavy, too heavy for a child-shaped life form inside a pod. The ship AI activated again. Its voice was calm, but sharper than before. "Warning. Subject classified as Class Omega threat. Release probability. Catastrophic. Recommended action. Termination." The word termination repeated slowly, like it was not advice anymore, but an order written into the structure of the ship itself. The engineer closest to Ethan stepped back. "We should leave now," he said quietly. "This is beyond us." Another voice followed. "If she wakes up here, we won't have time to escape." But Ethan did not move. His eyes stayed on the pod inside. The alien child shifted again, a small movement barely noticeable. Her hand pressed weakly against the glass from the inside, not attacking, not resisting, just reaching, like she could feel something outside, like she knew someone was there. The room stayed silent for a moment. Then the AI spoke again. "Data records confirm. Subject was responsible for destruction of 3 military armadas." The screen flashed images: broken ships, explosions in space, entire fleets vanishing in energy storms. The crew stared in disbelief. "3 fleets, one whispered. "That's impossible." Another replied. The eye continued. "Subject is not stable biological life form. Subject is classified weaponized evolutionary entity. A weapon, not a child." That word changed the atmosphere in the room. Fear grew faster now. One crew member raised his weapon slightly. "Captain, we need to destroy the pod before it activates." Another nodded. "Yes, if we leave her alive, we risk everything." The suggestion hung in the air, heavy and cold, but Ethan slowly turned his head. "Lower your weapon," he said calmly. The man froze. "Sir, you don't understand what this is," Ethan replied. "I understand what I see." Silence again. The child inside the pod moved slightly stronger this time. Her eyes opened a little, not fully. Just a crack of light revealing deep exhaustion. She was awake. Barely. Her eyes did not show aggression, only confusion and fear. The kind of fear that does not come from danger outside, but from long isolation inside. The AI voice grew louder. "Warning. Subject awake state detected. Activation risk increased." Red lights flashed across the chamber. Emergency systems prepared for containment. The ship itself seemed ready to react. The crew became more tense. "Captain, she is waking up. Step away. Now." But Ethan did not move. Instead, he slowly removed his helmet. The gesture shocked the team. "Sir, what are you doing?" He did not answer. He took one step closer to the pod. The child inside reacted slightly. Her fingers pressed harder against the glass. Not forcefully, but like she recognized presence, like she had been waiting for it. The eye issued its final warning. Final protocol initiated. Containment failure expected. All personnel evacuate immediately. Alarm started sounding. Red lights filled the room. The entire ship seemed to tense like a living thing preparing for disaster. One crew member shouted, "Captain, She is going to trigger the kill zone. Another screamed, "We have seconds." But Ethan placed his hand gently on the pod surface. The glass was cold, and inside. The alien child looked at him, fully awake now, weak, confused, scared. And then she whispered a broken sound, not perfect language, not clear words, just one thing. Not alone? The entire room froze, even the AI silence lasted for a moment. That single phrase changed everything, because it was not a threat. It was a question, and in that moment, the so-called weapon did not look like destruction anymore. It looked like something that had been left alone for far too long. The containment chamber stayed frozen in silence after the alien child spoke. Not alone? Those two broken words changed the entire feeling of the room. Alarms were still active, red warning lights still flashed. The ship, I was still issuing emergency protocols, but no one moved. Not the crew, not the systems, not even the fear that had filled the room a moment ago. Everything paused. Inside the pod, the alien child slowly pressed her small hand against the glass again. Her movements were weak, unsteady, like her body was still not fully awake. Her eyes stayed open, now dark, tired, searching. She was not looking at weapons, not scanning for threats. She was looking at Ethan, as if he was the first thing that felt real in a long time. Captain Ethan Cole kept his hand on the pod surface. He did not step back. He did not activate weapons. He did not follow the II warnings. He just stayed there. The crew behind him whispered urgently through comms, "Captain, please move away. This is still classified as an active threat. If she fully wakes up, we cannot guarantee containment." But Ethan did not respond, because he could see something they were missing. The child was not trying to break out. She was not building energy. She was not charging an attack. She was simply trying to understand the ship. I spoke again, louder now, warning. Subject emotional response unstable. Unknown effect on nearby systems. But nothing happened. No explosions, no energy surge, no destruction, only silence. Ethan slowly lowered himself closer to the pod level. Now he was eye to eye with her, separated only by reinforced glass. The child tilted her head slightly, as if she had never seen someone look at her like this before. Not like a weapon, not like a mistake, not like something dangerous, just like someone alive. One of the engineers finally broke the silence. "Captain, she is reacting differently than the reports." Another replied in disbelief. All previous data said instant aggression on contact, but there was no aggression. Only confusion. The child raised her small fingers again. This time she traced the glass gently, slow, careful, like she was drawing something invisible between them. Ethan noticed her breathing changing. It was still unstable, but calmer than before. He spoke softly for the first time. His voice was low, controlled, not commanding. "Can you hear me?" The crew went silent again, even through comms. The child blinked slowly. Her eyes focused more clearly on him. Then she made another sound, not a word this time, just a soft, broken tone, like she was trying to copy his voice. The I immediately reacted. "Warning. Subject is attempting communication link." But nothing harmful happened. Instead, the pod lights dimmed slightly. Energy readings stabilized. One engineer stared at the monitor. "That's impossible. Her energy output is dropping, not rising." Another replied, "She is calming down." No one believed it, but the data showed it clearly. The so-called weapon entity was becoming less unstable, not more. Ethan slowly placed his palm flat against the glass. The child mirrored him. Her small hand met his from the other side. For a moment, there was only glass between them. But it did not feel like a barrier anymore. It felt like distance, not danger. The eye issued another warning. Unexpected behavior pattern detected. Reclassification required. The system struggled to understand what it was seeing, because everything in its data said this should not happen. A Class Omega entity should not calm down, should not respond emotionally, should not seek contact, but she was doing all three. The crew behind Ethan slowly lowered their weapons, not fully but enough, because something had changed. The fear was still there, but it was no longer absolute. The alien child pressed her forehead lightly against the glass. Her eyes stayed on Ethan. Then she whispered again, fainter this time. "Stay." Just one word. Simple, fragile human crew members exchanged uncertain looks. One of them spoke quietly. "Captain, I think she thinks you are her only safe point." Ethan did not answer because he understood something now. This was not a weapon trying to wake up. This was a child trying to decide if the world was safe enough to exist in. The AI systems began recalibrating in the background. Threat status: uncertain. Recommendation: observation instead of termination. Even the machine was unsure now. Ethan slowly removed his hand from the glass. The child immediately reacted. Not aggressively, but fearfully. Her fingers pressed harder against the surface. Like she thought he was leaving. Ethan noticed it, and he stopped. He placed his hand back gently. "I am here," he said softly. The child blinked. Slowly her breathing steadied again, and for the first time since the boarding began. The containment chamber no longer felt like a prison room. It felt like the beginning of contact between two species, between fear and understanding, between a child who was never safe and a human who decided she deserved to be, and somewhere deep inside the alien ship systems, the definition of threat quietly began to change. The silence inside the alien wreck did not last long. Far above the broken ship, space suddenly changed. A distortion appeared in the darkness, small at first, then expanding like a wound in reality. One jump point opened, then another. Human fleet signatures began to form in the wreck zone. The scanners inside Horizon Drift immediately lit up. Warning: multiple human military signatures detected. The ship's voice returned, sharper than before. Identified. Human Central Command Fleet. Probability. Intervention event initiated. Inside the containment chamber, everything felt different now. The alien child was still pressed against the glass. Her small hand remained against Ethan's. Her breathing was calmer than before, but her eyes shifted suddenly when the system alerts increased. She felt it. Something big was coming, not in sound, not in sight, but in presence. Ethan slowly turned his head toward the scanner feed. The crew behind him became tense again. One of them spoke quickly. "Captain, Command Fleet is here," another added. "That's not a rescue group. That's Enforcement Division." The display zoomed out. Dozens of human warships were arriving. Heavy cruisers, defense carriers, orbital command vessels. They formed a wide ring around the wreck zone, not random, controlled, strategic. Containment formation. Ethan's comm system suddenly activated. A direct channel opened. A cold voice entered the bridge. "Captain Ethan Cole. This is Central Command Authority. No emotion, no greeting, only control. We have detected unauthorized contact with a Class Omega alien entity." Ethan stayed silent. The voice continued. "Your vessel is ordered to disengage immediately." A pause. Then the next line came. "Subject is classified as existential threat. You are authorized to terminate on sight." Inside the chamber, the AI repeated the same command. Termination authorization confirmed. The word echoed again and again. Termination, termination, termination. The alien child reacted instantly. Her small body tensed. Her hand trembled against the glass. Her eyes widened slightly. Fear returned, not of the humans in front of her, but of the feeling outside, the ships above. The judgment. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time, she was afraid again. The crew behind him became restless. "Captain, they will fire if we refuse. This is command protocol. They will destroy the wreck and everything inside it." But Ethan did not move. He opened the communication channel. "Central Command," he said calmly. "I have the subject under observation." The reply came immediately. "No observation is authorized. Terminate immediately." A second voice joined the call, stronger, colder. "This entity destroyed 3 fleets in past records. You are standing next to a weapon event class anomaly." Ethan glanced at the child, then back at the channel. "She is not attacking," he replied. "She is not resisting. She is not doing anything except surviving." A short silence followed. Then command responded. "That is irrelevant." The words were sharp, final. "Her existence is classified as a risk to galactic stability." Inside the chamber, The HFY reinforced the command. Repeat. Termination required for safety. The crew behind Ethan slowly raised their weapons again. Not toward him, but toward the pod. Ethan noticed and stepped in front of it. Lower your weapons. He ordered. One crew member hesitated. Sir. Command will fire if we disobey. Ethan did not look away. Then they fire. He said. Silence hit the room. The alien child pressed closer to the glass. Her eyes now moved between Ethan and the chaos outside. She could feel it. The pressure, the decision, the fear, not inside her, but around her. The fleet above powered weapons energy signatures built slowly. Targeting systems locked onto the wreck. The command voice returned. This is your final warning. Captain Cole. Step away or you will be considered complicit. Ethan's hand stayed on the pod. Then he spoke clearly. She is not a weapon to me. She is a child. That word changed the tone of everything for a brief moment. Even the communication channel stayed silent. The alien child looked at him, slowly, as if she understood something important. Not the words, but the meaning behind them. And then, she did something unexpected. She placed both hands against the glass and leaned closer to him. Not hiding, not fearing, choosing. The ship AI immediately flagged a new anomaly. Subject emotional bond detected. Unknown variable in behavior system. Outside. The fleet prepared to fire inside. One human stood between them and the child, and for the first time in recorded history, the definition of threat and child were about to collide in the same moment. The entire wreck zone felt like it was holding its breath above the broken alien ship. The human fleet stayed locked in formation, weapons-powered target systems active, commands waiting for final authorization. One order, that was all it needed, and everything inside the wreck would be erased. Inside the alien containment chamber, the pressure felt different now, not from machines, not from systems, but from something far heavier. A decision that could not be undone. Captain Ethan Cole stood in front of the pod, his hand still resting on the glass. Inside, the alien child stayed close to him. Both of her small hands pressed against the same spot. She was not crying now, but she was not calm either. Her eyes kept shifting upward, as if she could sense the massive fleet outside. She did not understand ships. She did not understand commands, but she understood fear, and right now, everything around her felt like fear. The ship AI spoke again. Final protocol active. External forces will initiate termination in 2- moments. The crew behind Ethan stood frozen. One of them whispered, Captain, they will destroy us with her inside if we don't comply. Another replied, there is no negotiation with command. But Ethan did not look at them. His focus stayed on the child. She pressed her forehead against the glass again. This time harder, like she was trying to stay connected. Like losing him now would mean everything returning to darkness. Ethan spoke softly, you are not alone. The child blinked slowly. Those words were simple, but for her, they meant everything outside the ship. The fleet commander's voice returned. Final warning. Captain Cole, step away from the target. Ethan slowly lifted his head toward the communication channel. The entire fleet was listening. Every ship, every weapon system, every command officer. Silence stretched across space. Then Ethan spoke, not loudly but clearly, no. The single word echoed through every channel. For a moment, even command did not respond. Inside the chamber, the AI immediately reacted. Insubordination detected. Response. Termination authorization confirmed. The fleet above shifted. Weapons locked tighter. Energy cores reached peak charge. One command line came through. Last chance. Captain Cole. Ethan took a breath, then turned slightly. Not away from the pod, but closer to it. He placed his other hand gently on the glass. Now both hands mirrored the child's, separated only by transparent armor. He spoke again. She is not your enemy. A pause. Then he continued. She is not a weapon anymore. If she ever was, the fleet commander replied immediately. Records confirm otherwise. She wiped out entire armadas. Ethan looked at the child. Her eyes were still watching him, waiting, trusting, not understanding the war outside. Only understanding the only person who had not hurt her, Ethan replied. I don't care what your records say. She is standing here afraid. That is all I need to know. Inside the chamber, the crew behind him went silent. Even the AI paused for a fraction of a second. Outside, the fleet prepared final firing sequence. Firing in 10 seconds. The countdown began. 10. The alien child's fingers tightened slightly against the glass 9. Her breathing became shallow again. 8. She looked at Ethan like she was trying to memorize him. 7. Ethan did not move. 6. He stayed exactly where he was. 5. The child's eyes widened slightly. 4. Something inside her shifted. Not power, not energy, something deeper. 3. The fleet weapons glowed brighter. 2. Ethan leaned closer to the glass 1. For a single instant, everything stopped. Then the child did something no one expected. Her glowing energy signatures collapsed completely. Not exploding, not activating, but shutting down like she had chosen silence over destruction. At the exact same moment, Ethan stepped forward and pressed a manual override on the pod. The containment seals released. The pod opened. No explosion followed. No energy wave. No destruction, only still air. The child fell forward and Ethan caught her in his arms, small, weak, alive behind him. Alarms screamed outside. The fleet froze mid-fire sequence, and in the command channel, silence returned again. Because the Class Omega threat had not destroyed anything, it had been saved. Ethan held the alien child tightly. And for the first time in the entire war zone, there was no weapon response. Only a child breathing and a human refusing to let her die.